Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I want to continue to call you Chair Yellen, though it's Dr. Yellen, and it's so good to see you again. And
Good.
thank you for your willingness to serve during these challenging times without question. I'll hop right to it because Chairman Cramer will keep me to my 5 minutes. The first question I have is about the pandemic relief package that's been presented, as well as I do, that in December we passed a package that included $80 billion for schools to reopen, $280 billion to restart the Paycheck Protection Program for a second round. It also included billions of dollars for the vaccines, which I think is certainly an area where we need to invest even more than we have so far, without question. But the $1.9 trillion package that has been presented to us is a package that focuses on some priorities that I think will actually hurt our economy as much as it would improve our economy. One in particular is the issue of raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I will say that I've been talking to businesses around the country and specifically at home. The one thing that even the Congressional Budget Office recognizes is that by increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour, it could shutter somewhere around 3.7 million jobs on the high end, a minimum of 1.3 million jobs in our economy. And the last thing this economy needs as we attempt to recover is a loss of 1.3 to 3.7 million jobs. But in addition to that, it would increase the cost of doing business significantly. It would certainly devastate the opportunity to develop new jobs in rural America and in rural South Carolina, as well as for those minorities and women coming into the workforce. It would actually have a disproportionate impact on those folks that you said in your testimony you want to target for relief and opportunity. Said differently, over 110,000 restaurants have closed during the pandemic, thousands of those restaurants in South Carolina. By increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour and eliminating tips for servers at restaurants, we will do actually what I would consider an existential threat to those restaurants and frankly, and more importantly, to those employees of restaurants. How do we grapple with parts of this package that really are philosophical in nature and denies the practical reality that comes from it?
Well, Senator, I appreciate that question. President-elect Biden has proposed raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour because right now we have millions of American workers who are putting their lives on the line to keep their communities functioning, and sometimes even working multiple jobs aren't earning enough to put food on the table and a roof over their heads. And they're suffering in countless ways, especially during this pandemic, and really struggling to get by. And raising the minimum wage would really help many of those workers. And that's the reason for doing it. Now, in terms of potential job loss, there's now a large economics literature on this, and much of it suggests that the raising minimum wages, this is what researchers often look at what happens when one state raises its minimum wage and a neighboring state leaves it alone, to see how businesses fare in the two different places with different treatments. And the findings are that the job loss is very minimal, if anything. So I think that the likely impact on jobs is minimal. That's my reading of the research. And of course, I agree with you, small businesses are struggling, and it's critical to help those businesses. I appreciate the PPP package in the recently passed bill. I pledge that we will do everything we possibly can to get that money out to struggling businesses effectively. It is critically important to help those businesses. The money that's been allocated to CDFIs to support them and their lending, especially in low and moderate income communities, that's critically important aid. And President-elect Biden has proposed yet more aid to these businesses so that they can survive this pandemic and get back on their feet.
Well, thank you for your answer, Dr. Yellen. I would say that there's no doubt that when you artificially increase the minimum wage, you are going to permanently decrease the number of jobs in the economy. When we have a market-driven increase in the minimum wage, we see production go up and the value of work increases as well. My final question in my time that I have left, which doesn't look like any,
Actually, your time
would
is
be
expired.
around. Yes, sir. Let me just say this for the record, and perhaps you can answer it on the record for me, QFR. When we think about enough being enough, if there's another downturn in our economy, whether it's based on another pandemic or some other act, what are we doing to make sure that we have the resources necessary for that next downturn in 2 or 3 years, as opposed to using every weapon in the quiver today for what is a recovery that has started? I think it would be prudent for us to save some of the resources for the next time we need to respond to a global crisis of some sort. Thank you, Dr. Yellen, and I'll look to have that answer just in writing, ma'am. Have a great day.